Imagine the countdown for the new year leading not to cheers, but to chaos. Tonight, we dive into the heart-pounding New Year's Eve stories where celebrations turned to disasters, and midnight brought shocks instead of smiles. We hope you have a happy new year and nothing like these stories happens to you this year or ever. Our group, me, Jake, Jim, and Leo, had this tradition when we were young. We'd hike up the mountain in our town to catch the first sunrise of the year. It wasn't just about the sunrise, though. It was about the bond we shared, the crisp mountain air, the promise of a fresh start. But going on to the year we turned 18, things took a dark turn. As we approached the summit, the first light of dawn was still a promise on the horizon. That's when we saw the eerie glow through the trees. Curiosity drew us off our path, and we found ourselves on the edge of a clearing, shrouded in an otherworldly mist. In the clearing we saw them, a group of figures in dark robes, gathered in a circle around a large, flickering bonfire. They were chanting in an unrecognizable language, their voices creating a haunting melody that sounded so chilling it sent shivers down my spine. We were mesmerized, hidden in the darkness, watching the ritual unfold. The cultists moved in a slow, rhythmic dance around the fire, their movements almost hypnotic. In the center of the circle was an altar, and though we couldn't make out the details, the sight filled us with an unexplainable dread. We froze hidden in the shadows, watching the ritual unfold. It was surreal, the way they moved in unison, their voices rising and falling in a cadence that made my skin crawl. The firelight cast ghastly shadows, making it seem like the figures were shifting, morphing. As the ritual reached its crescendo, one of the hooded figures turned abruptly, locking eyes with us. Time seemed to stand still. We were spotted, intruders in their secret world. Panic set in. The cultists' chanting intensified, their movements becoming more frenzied. We knew we had to escape. Turning, we fled back through the woods, the haunting chants echoing behind us, mingling with the rustling leaves. Our descent was a frantic blur, the once familiar path now a labyrinth of fear. We didn't dare look back, but the sensation of being pursued was overwhelming. We burst out of the woods and didn't stop running until we reached the car. As we drove away, the first light of dawn was breaking, but the beauty of it was lost on us. Our hearts still raced, our minds reeling from what we had seen. We discussed reporting it, but what could we say? That we stumbled upon a cult? There was no evidence or any witnesses besides us anyways. Since that day, I've returned to the mountains, but the sense of wonder now comes with a note of wariness. The experience has left a mark, a reminder of the unknown that lurks in the shadows of nature. I can't shake the image of that ritual, the haunting chants. The mountains hold secrets, some beautiful, some terrifying. That day, we glimpsed a hidden world, a reminder that behind the beauty of nature, there are things beyond our understanding, things that should perhaps remain unseen. New Year's Eve has always been about celebrating friendships and the promise of a new beginning. But last year's party, thrown at my friend Mark's spacious downtown apartment, took a dark and unexpected turn. The evening started as usual, with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. Mark's place was decked out in festive lights, and the atmosphere was electric with joy and anticipation. Friends, old and new, mingled, sharing stories and resolutions for the upcoming year. That's when I first noticed him, a lone man standing alone by the balcony, holding a drink. He was well dressed, albeit a bit out of place with his solemn demeanor. I assumed he was a friend, someone's plus one perhaps. But as the night went on, I realized no one seemed to know who he was. Curious, I approached a group of friends. "Do you know the guy by the balcony?" I asked. They exchanged puzzled glances, each shaking their head. A ripple of unease went through us. Mark, overhearing our conversation, joined in, his brow furrowed in concern. When Mark, our host, approached him for a polite inquiry, the air shifted palpably. The stranger's eyes, cold and unyielding, met Mark's with a disturbing intensity. "I'm just enjoying the party," he said, his voice laced with an ominous undertone. The confrontation escalated rapidly. In a sudden burst of violence, the stranger lunged at Mark, his hands clasping tightly around Mark's neck. The room erupted into chaos, guests screaming and scrambling to intervene. The man's strength was terrifying, his grip unyielding as Mark struggled for air. It took 3 of us to pull him off. He fought with a wild, frenzied strength, his face twisted in rage. As we wrestled him towards the door, he thrashed violently, knocking over furniture and shoving anyone in his path. The moment he was out the door, we bolted it shut, hearts racing, and called the police. When they arrived and apprehended him, the chilling truth came to light. He was a wanted fugitive with a history of violent assaults and armed robberies. We were haunted by the what-ifs. What if we hadn't acted in time? What if his intentions had been even more sinister? Was he simply hiding from the police, or was he there to steal and hurt anyone that got in his way? The night of New Year's Eve, I found myself stranded after a party when my phone died, leaving me without a way to call for a ride. I was relieved to find a rideshare car idling nearby, the driver offering to take me home. Little did I know, this ride would turn into the most harrowing journey of my life. I hopped into the back seat, grateful for the warmth. The driver, a middle-aged man with a friendly demeanor, asked about my New Year's celebrations. As we drove, I noticed he was taking a route I wasn't familiar with. I chalked it up to traffic avoidance, but a creeping unease began to settle in. My discomfort escalated when he bypassed a turn that led to my neighborhood. I spoke up, my voice edged with panic. "Hey, I think you missed my turn back there." He glanced at me through the rearview mirror, his eyes chillingly devoid of emotion. "No worries," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "I know a shortcut." As we drove further away from the city lights, fear gripped me. I tried the door handle. It was locked. I realized then that this was no ordinary rideshare. The man was not following any route I knew, taking me deeper into desolation. I demanded he stop the car, my voice rising in terror, but he simply smiled, a cold, predatory grin. My mind raced, thoughts of escape and survival battling the paralyzing fear. I remembered the safety advice I once scoffed at, to always check if the child lock was engaged. In a moment of desperate courage, I lunged forward, grabbing his phone charging on the dashboard. The car swerved as he tried to wrestle it back, but I held on, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. I screamed our location into the phone before he managed to snatch it back. The car came to an abrupt stop. He turned, his face twisted in rage, and lunged at me. Adrenaline surged through me. I fought back, kicking and pushing anything to get away. In the chaos, I managed to unlock the door and stumbled out into the night. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrambled to my feet, expecting the rideshare driver to speed off. But he didn't. Instead, he slammed the car into reverse, his tires screeching against the asphalt. I froze for a split second, realizing his intentions. He was trying to run me over. Adrenaline surged through my veins, and I dove out of the way just in time, feeling the rush of air as the car sped past me. Panic-stricken, I ran as fast as I could, not daring to look back. I heard the car turn around and the engine revving up again. He was coming back for another attempt. Every survival instinct in me kicked in. I ducked into an alley, pressing myself against the wall, hoping to evade his sight. The car slowed down, the driver searching for me. I could hear his muffled curses, the sound of him scanning the area. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't find me. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the car speed away. I waited, counting each agonizing second before I dared to peek out. The street was empty. I sprinted to the nearest open store, a gas station a few blocks away, and collapsed inside, gasping for breath. The attendant, seeing my state of distress, quickly called the police. The aftermath was a blur of police reports and questions. I gave them every detail I could remember, from the rideshare driver's appearance to the car's make and model. The police launched a manhunt, and a few days later they caught him. He was a known criminal, wanted in several states for similar offenses. He never admitted why he tried to run me over that night. Whether it was panic, anger, or some twisted thrill, I'll never know. What I do know is that the experience changed me. I became more cautious, always aware of my surroundings. Now, unless it's a taxi I called myself, I never just hail one from the streets. And even then, I always double-check the car plate number before I hop on. My boyfriend and I had been in that comfy, Instagram-worthy phase of our relationship. You know, the one where everyone double taps on your happiness like it's going out of style. We had plans to hit a New Year's party to say adios to the old year and welcome the new with a kiss at midnight. It was supposed to be one of those perfect moments you see in movies. The party was buzzing, music thumping, glasses clinking, the usual razzle-dazzle. We were vibing, counting down the minutes. But as the clock neared 12, Mr. Perfect starts getting fidgety. Like, more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I brushed it off at first. Big crowds weren't really his jam, so maybe he was just overwhelmed. I didn't know. We grabbed some champagne and squeezed through the sea of people, gearing up for the big moment. Then, bam! The clock strikes 12. People are cheering, balloons popping, and I'm there puckering up. But instead of locking lips, he's scanning the room like he's lost his keys. I'm left hanging, my heart sinking. I mean, come on, even Cinderella got her midnight magic, right? Now he's mumbling excuses, avoiding eye contact. His smiles were forced, and I'm thinking, what gives? The night rolls on, and he's acting weirder by the minute. It's like I'm dating a ghost all of a sudden. This contrasted too much with the life of the party and people welcoming the new year with open arms. I needed answers. Fast forward to a few days into the new year, and the plot, as they say, thickens. I stumble on a message not meant for me, but there it is, and suddenly it's like I'm the last to know the punchline of a really bad joke. He's been seeing someone else. And not just anyone else, but a girl who was at the same party, toasting the new year, under the same roof. Talk about a slap in the face. It was like all the air got sucked out of the room. I confronted him, and the excuses came out, lame and limping. He's stammering, tripping over his own words, and I'm standing there, the epitome of that meme, with the house on fire saying, "This is fine." It's a mess, a real dumpster fire of a situation. The trust, the laughs, the finishing each other's sentences, it's all tainted now. Every "I love you" feels like a con, every memory a setup for the punchline of his betrayal. The couple everyone loved on Instagram turned out to be failure and disaster. So where does this story fit in the grand scheme of New Year's disasters? It's the plot twist you didn't see coming, the hidden iceberg waiting for your Titanic. It's the reminder that sometimes the fireworks outside can't hold a candle to the explosion of emotions inside when you realize your love story's just another cautionary tale. In the end, it's not just about the missed kiss at midnight. It's about the aftermath, the cold light of January revealing the cracks in what you thought was a perfect picture. It's about the realizations that hit harder than any hangover. That's the New Year's betrayal for you, the slow unraveling of a lie when the party's over and the confetti's been swept away.